Ferals is the brainchild of David Lapham, someone you might remember from the Crossed series we did a few months ago. The story takes place in and around the states of Minnesota and Utah. It's grim and dark, with a lot of gore and twisted mentalities of psychopathic minds that manage to go unnoticed unless you decide to take a closer look. So if you enjoyed Crossed coverage, you're going to love this one. Oh, and please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks from you will help us in marvelous ways to keep bringing you these long reads. And now, let's dive into the story. Ferals issue number 1, A Game of Lust and Revenge. Stories by David Lapham tend to open up with a bang. We've seen this in the Crossed series we've covered previously, and the first issue of Ferals follows the same trail. We get our first glimpse into a crime scene in Cypress, Lake County, Minnesota. It's an RV, and every part of it is covered in blood. The RV itself looks derelict, and in the middle of it, there's a table, and on it is a dismembered arm still holding onto the coffee mug as though stopped in time itself. On the scene are Dale, Jackie, and Checker. Dale Chestnut is the resident police officer. Jackie is the victim's ex-wife, and Checker is the resident coroner. The one murdered and Jackie's ex-husband is Mark, Dale's best friend. They were drinking buddies, and the entire town knows it, which is why he was called here before anyone else from the sheriff's office. Jackie was the first one to arrive on the scene, and just like any other deadbeat ex, Mark was kind of an asshole. He was behind on his alimony payments, on child support payments, and it's no wonder Jackie's kind of rude when Dale tries to question her. She simply lights a cigarette and walks away while berating Dale as well. After all, the only time Mark showed up to meet his kids was when he was drunk and out of his wits after a night out with Dale. And although Jackie walks away, Dale can't let her go without proper answers. He asks Checker to investigate the scene and goes after Jackie to get some answers. Dale knows Jackie didn't kill Mark. After all, how could a woman like her hack a man to 100 pieces without leaving a trail in sight? Jackie then reveals that she was at the trailer in the middle of the night to rob Mark. She is struggling. Her daughter needs new glasses and her son needs a new uniform, and considering that Mark hadn't paid his dues for at least the past few months, Jackie thought she was right to rob him in the middle of the night. Frankly, she'd expected him to be out drinking with Dale all night. Despite all this, Jackie's happy that Mark is dead. After all, this means that she can move on and give up on the hope that the man would pay what he owes her one day. Now she can go out into the world and truly be free. Cypress is a small town with a population of 482 people, which has just been reduced by 1. Checker is the resident expert when it comes to killing. He's the coroner, but he can also patch up people in emergencies. It's why Dale relies on him, but when he gets back into the trailer, Checker's words don't soothe his worries. The fridge is full of leftovers that Mark was supposed to eat. The cuts are ragged, like the flesh was ripped off, but there's no sign of too much pulling on the tissues either. This means that whatever did this was huge, powerful, and with a lot of teeth. There's no sign of straight cuts or slices, no sign of friction burns from power tools. Whatever did this was too powerful, powerful enough to rip Mark's arm off without moving it from the table while he was having his coffee. As Checker terms it, it's the equivalent of yanking the tablecloth off without disturbing the dishes. He then tells Dale that the blood trail leads into the woods, but considering the amount of blood splattered in the RV, it's unlikely that Dale will find his friend in one piece. Dale discovering Mark's body is contrasted by his words in Madge's bar and grill that evening. Mark was hacked into pieces. Most of his limbs had been torn apart. But the worst part, his privates had been stuffed into his mouth. And this is what Dale was on about in the bar while being on the verge of being wasted. No animal can do this, bear, mountain lions. They like to be brutal, yes, but they aren't smart or psychotic enough to stuff your privates into your mouth after your death. Dale knows that this is the doing of a man, and whoever did this, he's going to find them and put them behind bars. He's quite loud and begins to spook the patrons at the bar, so the owner Madge calms him down with a drink so that she won't lose any more customers. Dale calms down, but Mark's murder is still on his mind. He's here with his friend Ralph this evening, and while the two of them are playing pool, Ralph points out that a woman has been eyeing Dale ever since his outburst on the bar. Dale approaches the girl and talks her up as much as he can, considering his inebriated state, and we learn that the girl is named named Gerda. She's Norwegian, and although Dale is doing a pretty bad job of hitting on her, she doesn't really mind it. She's here looking for some action, and that's exactly what she finds once they begin talking. Dale stupidly reveals all the details of the investigation and town to her, how Mark died, how there are only 3 qualified police officers in Cyprus. He tells her everything, and it doesn't take much for Gerda to coax Dale into sleeping with her. All she has to do is simply place her hand on his inner thigh and they're off to the races. The problem with that is the fact that Gerda seems to be somewhat feral. She likes pain, and when the two of them are having sex in the bathroom, she asks Dale to hit her. When he refuses to do that, she begs for him to talk about Mark's murder and reveal in excruciating detail how Mark died. She wants to know how he was dismembered, how much blood there was, and this is beyond weird to Dale. Mark was his friend, and this is why he became aggressive. In an attempt to shut Gerda up, Dale gave in, reached into something beyond his being and punched Gerda in the face. He punched her hard enough to draw blood, and though he was taken aback, it seems Gerda liked it. Once they were done, she simply fixed the bruise on her face by applying some makeup and then walked out of the bar. But this was enough to shake things up for Dale. He was sober now, and all the money he'd spent that night on drinks was now down the drain. The only thing he could now do was mourn his friend's death on his ex-wife's doorstep, and Jackie wasn't too pleased when she saw Dale shit-faced on her porch. But their interaction reveals that Dale and Jackie had been sleeping together ever since she and Mark broke up. And this night is going to be the same. After Jackie puts her children to sleep, Dale and her once again have a debaucherous night till dawn. Dale wakes up while Jackie sings to herself and cooks breakfast for him and her children. But that is when things go south. Jackie spots someone outside the house, and considering Dale's habits, she assumes it is him. She decides to check in on him, only to be pulled into thin air by an unseen force. This unseen force is a huge werewolf, and when Jackie lays her eyes on him, she knows that this is the end. The werewolf slashes Jackie's back, begins to rip her in half, and that is when we see that Dale is cozily lying in the bed, still recovering from his hangover. Jackie's children wake up hearing her cries, but Dale doesn't. And by the time Jackie's daughter has woken up Dale, it's already too late. Not only has their relationship come to light, but when Dale hears her cries, he knows that something bad has happened to Jackie. Dale gets dressed and walks out into the backyard, only to find Jackie's severed leg lying there helplessly. He follows the trail of blood and soon finds the werewolf feasting on her body. Dale jumps into action and unloads his service revolver on the wolf, but it's too late. The werewolf has done its job and it leaves immediately when Dale stumbles and falls over Jackie's other severed leg. He then walks up to the crime scene only to realise that Jackie is no more. All of her limbs have been torn off and the werewolf was about to feast on her insides. But this moment of distraction renders Dale vulnerable, and the werewolf capitalises on this by hitting Dale's back, sending him flying into a nearby tree. And this is when Jackie's neighbours come to Dale's rescue. They think it's a bear, which is why they fire shots into thin air while screaming loudly, hoping that the bear would leave Dale alone. It works. The werewolf leaves, but in its wake it leaves a dead woman, abandoned children, and a severely injured Dale. The neighbours are baffled. They don't know what to make of this, and this is the reason why Sheriff Felton's called in. Ferals issue number 2, Face to Face. One thing Ferals and Crossed have in common are horrid confrontations, and this issue begins with a similar one. Dale wakes up on a hospital bed after the horrid attack he suffered. He's currently in Two Harbors, Minnesota, and as he comes to his senses, Sheriff Joe Felton asks the resident nurse to go outside for a bit because he wants to talk to Dale alone. Dale wakes up covered in bandages. He has a broken arm, a ripped up torso, and most of all, a massive headache. Joe sympathizes with Dale, but after all the people that have been killed, after all the bodies on his hand, questioning Dale and taking him in has now become his #1 priority. He tells Dale that he was quite badly injured, and it's a miracle that he managed to survive considering what happened to Jackie, and this is why he is suspicious. The Locker family that found him claimed it was a bear attack, but Sheriff Joe Felton isn't about to be easily swayed. Dale thinks the sheriff is on his side, so he decides to come clean. He tells Joe that the animal that attacked him and Jackie wasn't a bear. It was bigger than that. It was like a gorilla, bear and wolf all combined into a single entity. Dale is horrified by the recollection and reveals that he suspects that the same animal also got to Mark. Joe tells Dale that they already have a posse searching the mountains and that it has been 5 days since Dale and Jackie were attacked. Now that he has finally woken up, the sheriff is here to ask him some important questions. Dale tries to get up from the gurney, tries to tell Joe that the animal was smart enough to understand him, him. It was smart just like a person, but Sheriff Felton is more interested in Dale's personal life. He wants to know if Dale was in contact with a woman named Gerda Ingebrigtsen. Dale tries to deny his involvement at first, which doesn't play well with the sheriff. After all, Sheriff Felton already has Gerda and Jackie's bodies in the morgue, and the only thing linking them to each other is Dale's semen. Dale suddenly remembers the Norwegian lady in the bar the other day and tries to come clean to Sheriff Felton, but by now it's too late, and Dale knows that Joe suspects that he was somehow involved in the murders. Because in his purview, Jackie and Mark were chopped up while Gerda had a few bite marks on her body. If he was to come up with a theory, it's likely that someone set it up so that it looked some animal had killed the three of them, while in fact it was the most dangerous animal on Earth, man. The factor supporting his theory is that only Jackie's body had bite marks on it. The rest were either torn apart or ripped open, which could be a human's doing. The only reason Dale isn't under arrest right now is because of the Locker family's eyewitness testimony. The fact that they claimed that an animal was attacking Jackie is the only thing keeping Dale out of jail. In fact, in Sheriff Felton's purview, the animals in the area were likely attracted towards the bodies once they had been chopped up. And it isn't like bears, wolves, or monkeys chop up bodies for fun. It's man that does that, and the only man common among these three victims is Dale himself. Dale tries to plead not guilty, but Sheriff Felton has a pretty solid case. One of the victims was Dale's best friend, while the other two were women he had slept with recently. Dale is shocked by this revelation, but that is when Sheriff Felton tells Dale that he's going to do his due diligence and continue investigating. But that doesn't mean that Dale is off the hook. He isn't allowed to leave town anytime soon. With these words, Sheriff Felton leaves Dale's room and an officer is posted outside it 24/7. However, late in the night, Dale gets up from the gurney, manages to crawl towards the closet and dresses himself in his uniform. By the time the nurses of the hospital notice that Dale's medical sensors are offline, it's already too late. They enter his room only to find it in complete disarray. The equipment is on the floor, sheets and IV liquid are scattered everywhere. The window is open and Dale is long gone. Sheriff Felton is panicking and the nurses in charge try to calm him down by telling him that Dale couldn't have gotten far with his injuries. After all, he had a punctured lung, 8 broken ribs and massive internal bleeding. The notion that Dale could go out the 3rd floor window and survive on his own is frankly ludicrous to her. The two of them continue to argue, and we then see that Dale has made his way all the way back to Cyprus by now. It's 3:14 a.m. and he is currently outside the coroner, Dennis Checker's apartment. The seat is covered in blood and Dale is in horrific pain, but thankfully the truck's headlights wake up Checker, and when he steps outside he sees an injured Dale limping towards him. He isn't worried about being an accomplice to Dale, but he is mad because Dale has just woken him up in the middle of the night. However, the two of them have worked together for a long time, and though Dale stole 6 cars in total while on his way to Cyprus, all Coroner Checker is worried about is Dale's health. Checker was the one who treated Dale before he was airlifted out of Cyprus and flown out to 2 harbours, which is the reason why he is surprised that Dale is still walking. He asks to see the bodies of the victims, but Checker insists on treating Dale first. He tends to the slashes on his back and realises that Dale is healing faster than anyone he has treated in his life. He then takes Dale to see the bodies in the morgue, and Dale finds a horrific sight in front of him. The Crossed series is known for its gore, and Ferrell's follows in close footsteps when it comes to showing anatomical dismembering. Jackie has been torn from limb to limb, while Mark and Gerda have been disemboweled from the inside out. The two of them are barely recognisable, and it's only Jackie that seems to have been spared a horrific death. Checker tells Dale that they had no choice but to send the skin, DNA and semen samples to the FBI. After all, these killings seem to be the doing of someone psychotic, and they can't let an animal like that run amok in the public. Dale confesses that all the samples will lead to him, and Checker confesses that things aren't looking great for him. Dale recognises the difference between the killings. Mark and Gerda have been torn up from the inside out like it was a vengeful murder, while Jackie has been killed in a way which implies that she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Checker then reveals to Dale that another semen sample was found in Gerda's body, and that is when Dale suspects that it could have been Mark who slept with her a day before he met her in the bar. Dale curses himself for getting Jackie involved in all of this, and that is when Checker reveals that Gerda had a husband, Christopher Ingebrigtsen. Dale remembers that Gerda mentioned that she was escaping someone, and that is when he puts two and two together and thinks it might have been her husband that killed her. Maybe he trained the animal to hunt down humans, or maybe the man is a psycho after all. Checker drops off Dale in the town square, hands him some narco, and asks him to take care of himself. We then see Dale trying to make his way into the sheriff's office, only to then be arrested by Joe and other officers. They ambush him while being armed with weapons to the teeth, and within minutes, Dale is behind bars. Dale tries to scream at Joe. He tries to tell him what he has found. Dale suspects that it was Chris who killed the three of them. He likely has a trained animal that he sicks on anyone who tries to sleep with his wife, but Joe isn't listening to him. He is busy talking to the feds on the phone, and it is revealed that 2 agents will be arriving in Cyprus this morning. The bodies are to be retained, and Dale is supposed to be handed over to them. Dale once again tries to plead his innocence, but that is when Joe breaks and tells Dale that he has done all he could. He drove down to Bergen to talk to Christopher, Gerda's husband, but it led to nothing. He has a dozen alibis. The entire town is vouching for him, and although it's a bit weird, Joe can't do anything about it. Dale then tries to tell Joe to arm himself. He needs to call all the deputies and get them in the office. The animal, or whatever that thing is hunting Dale, and it is bound to be here anytime soon. Joe tries to refute Dale's theories about these murders being committed by a trained animal, but that is when a huge growl and a loud thud on the roof catches their attention. Joe tries to act calm and musters his aide, Hal, to get the guns, but Dale is panicking and screaming. He has seen what the beast can do. They need to call in the deputies, but Joe doesn't understand the urgency of the situation. He nonchalantly calls them and prepares for the fight while leaving Dale unarmed, which was a big mistake. The werewolf bursts in through the first window the very next second, and as soon as it's inside, it decapitates Hal and begins to stalk Joe Felton. Dale screams for Joe to give him a gun, but Joe is struggling to accept reality. How can this hulking beast that looks like a mix of a bear, gorilla, and wolf be real? He backs up towards Dale and orders him to grab his revolver while he shoots the beast with his shotgun. Unfortunately, the shot grazes the beast's side, and the very next second, it has leapt up and is biting down on Joe's shoulder. Dale, however, managed to grab the revolver, and it is currently pointed at the beast's head while Dale orders it to put Joe down. Dale threatens to shoot the beast in the eye if he doesn't let Joe go, and this moment of recognition confirms Dale's suspicions that the beast is smart and can understand language. The werewolf puts Joe on the ground, but the damage is done. Joe is dying, and with his dying words, he asks Dale to kill the beast. Dale promises the beast that he will meet him in the woods outside to settle this once and for all. But this power struggle is what sets the werewolf off. He roars angrily and then tears Sheriff Felton's leg off, ensuring that it kills him. Dale begins shooting, and this is when the werewolf leaps for him. Thankfully, he's behind bars, and the jail barely manages to hold the beast back. It continues to gnaw and slash through the bars, and once Dale has run out of bullets, he uses his bare hands to rip its eye out. Dale is as furious as the beast, and this moment of violence scares the beast enough to run out of the office. That is when Dale looks down at his hands. They're bloodied. He has the beast's eye in his palm, but the most baffling thing, he has claws with long pointed nails, just like an animal. Dale then hears the officers outside unload their shotguns on the beast that just attacked them, and in a hurry, he manages to get out of the cell by squeezing himself through the bent bars. However, by the time he gets outside, the screams have vanished, and what awaits him is a massacre, to say the least. Everyone is dead, and Dale decides to finish the job on his own once and for all. He picks up one of the shotguns and heads into the woods. Ferrell's issue number 3, A Carnal Sin. Dale walks through the forest while limping with a broken arm as he remembers how insistent Gerda was on hitting him while they were having sex. It was a weird occurrence, but now that he is about to fight a werewolf, he feels some sort of an odd connection to her. He screams for the werewolf to show himself, but the beast is nowhere to be found. The pain is also too intense for Dale, which is why he decides to fall against a tree and take some painkillers that Checker handed him earlier. However, the pills have an adverse reaction on him. Dale vomits all that he has in his stomach and passes out instantly. The massacre outside the sheriff's office is discovered by the 2 FBI agents assigned to this case. Their conversation reveals that the FBI might know more about these beasts than the public or the police forces. They make their way to the morgue next, break inside, and what they find there only confirms their suspicions. They find Jackie, Gerda, and Mark's body's hacked to pieces, and naturally, the next thing to do is to conduct some interviews. We then see Dale lying on the forest floor while dreaming about the night he slept with Gerda. She was feral while they were doing the deed, and details of Mark's murder seemed to have turned her on. Dale hadn't revealed any details, but Gerda's questions had made it seem that she knew way more than she was letting on. She knew how he was decapitated, and even knew what the beast had done with Mark's privates. Dale remembers hitting her in the face, but this had only fueled her. This is when Dale remembers how Gerda's body looked in the morgue, and that horrifying sight suddenly wakes him up from his slumber, and he once again is baffled by the way in which his hands have completely transformed into humanoid claws. He then checks his broken arm and finds that it has already healed. Not only that, but most of his wounds have also closed up. This is a miracle that would have any officer baffled, but it seems Dale is focused on only one thing: murdering the beast that killed Jackie, Mark, and Gerda. He runs through the woods, tracks the beast, and finds it near the shore of a river, feasting on a deer. However, Dale's excitement gives away his position, and the very next second, he turns to look towards Dale with his right eye still missing. We then see the FBI officers questioning Ralph, his friend from the night at the bar. Ralph is in the sheriff department as well, and he kinda requests the FBI officer to take the interrogation outside because he can't stand the sight of the bodies being autopsied right in front of him. When they go outside, he barfs his guts out and then begins to tell the officer about how Dale hooked up with Gerda that night in the bar. Everyone knew what was happening, and Gerda was the first one to come out of the washroom. She had a black eye, but because she was calm and composed, Ralph thought she must have fallen. A bathroom isn't exactly the safest place to hook up with someone, but then, when he had found Dale minutes later, standing outside the bar in a daze, that had scared him. It was as if Dale was in a trance and he was muttering how much he loved Gerda. He claimed to be able to taste her from afar, claimed he could smell her from miles away, and it was as though Dale was familiar with every part of her. This scared Ralph, because when he had looked down, he had found Dale's bloodied fist and scraped up knuckles. Ralph in the present day is now questioning Dale's involvement. He's beginning to suspect that Dale could have committed the murders. The FBI officer dismisses Ralph and then reveals what he has found to his partner. His partner is the one who seems to be heading the case, and he knows more about these people than anyone. He reveals to his partner that Jackie was just the victim. There was nothing in her uterus. But Gerda, well, she was a carrier, and he had found what they were looking for inside her uterus. It's a golf ball-shaped extra body part in the uterus with concentric markings at the center of it. We then see Dale chasing the beast through the woods, and the much-awaited confrontation begins. Dale dodges a few swipes, gets thrown away, but then retrieves his gun and manages to shoot the beast right where his heart should be. But that is when the beast chomps down on Dale's right hand holding the shotgun, and that is when he begins to pass out once again. This time, however, he is sitting on the bar's toilet and Gerda is standing right in front of him. This time, instead of the memory replaying itself, it's as though Gerda is confronting him, and she simply leans down and says, "If you love me, you'll die for me." And these words breathe new life in Dale in the present day. Dale wrestles his arm out of the beast's mouth, leaps on top of it, breaks through its hide using the gun first, and then fires a shot in the opening that he had created. Dale shoots twice for good measure, and this time the beast falls down due to sheer pain. Ferrell's issue number 4, The Workings of a Cult. This issue gives us an insight into Gerda's husband, Christopher, and his community. We start the story in Bergen, Lake County, Minnesota, where the body of a girl named Bridget has just been found. She has slashes all over her body, but no one in the community sympathizes with her. Instead, they all call her a dirty whore and spit on her body, and her husband, Gunn, is no different. For some reason, the entire community believes that infidelity was the reason Bridget died. Christopher seems to be the leader, and he dismisses all of them while ordering his wife, Gerda, to take care of the body. But the women in the community are more crass. They want to disrespect Bridget by pissing on her body, and they only hold back because Bridget was Gerda's sister. Gerda, however, holds a straight face and orders them to do what they always do: strip the body and throw it out into the woods for the wolves. The next day, we see that Gerda was quite popular in town, not for her looks, but for her skills. We learn that babies in their clan are born with with claws and need to be tied down and covered so they don't hurt their parents. We see Gerda stitching up Hannah, who had just been hurt by her baby, and Gerda helps stitch her face up. Hannah knew that Bridget's death was traumatizing for Gerda, but she refused to talk about it. In fact, after this, we see Gerda helping yet another woman in pain, maybe because of the menstrual cycle their kind goes through. At least 5 women are holding her down, and once the screaming stops, Gerda emerges from the room carrying a huge ice pick. She orders her mother to tend to the woman's fever and to keep her away from the men of the camp till the bleeding stops. We then see her having dinner with Christopher and her baby, and through their conversation, we learn that there are different clans of their kind all across the USA, and they don't play nicely with each other. The closest one is the Jacobson clan, and she nonchalantly mentions seeing their leader in town the other day. This puts Christopher on edge, and the next morning we see that the clan is more like a cult. There's a battle for hierarchy, and of course, women. Eric, one of the men from the clan, shows up to express his love and lust for Gerda, but when she pushes him away, he chokes her using her own necklace and then calls in men that he has hired to kill Christopher. They then push her to the ground and get ready to force themselves upon her, but for some reason, Gerda decides to sleep with them all willingly. After the deed is done, a panting Gerda reaches the decomposing body of her sister in the woods, and this is when we see how Bridget had died. Gerda had killed her own sister, and she did that because she saw her having sex with Christopher in the woods, and this is the reason why she has been doing all this. She wants revenge on everyone who wronged her, so we see her dragging Bridget's head across the ground straight towards Eric's house. At night, her plan comes to fruition because when Christopher returns, he has Eric's decapitated head in his hands. The problem is, he also found Gerda's locket, the locket Eric had stolen in order to pay off the men that he had hired, and this creates a problem for Christopher. This is when Gerda reveals why she did all of this, because it was Christopher who cheated on her with her sister, and in order to disgrace him and his entire clan, she has now slept with 5 men from the cult. Christopher hits her in the face, but this doesn't stop Gerda. She continues antagonizing him, forcing Christopher to take a drastic step. He handcuffs her to the pipe under the sink and then pulls out the ceremonial horn that is only meant to be used in emergencies. Gerda panics. She tries to tell Christopher that he's overreacting, but she has pushed him far enough. He blows on the horn outside, but that is when the men that Eric had hired show up to kill him. Christopher runs for his life into the woods, manages to take down one of them, but soon he is cornered. They manage to stab and injure him, and that is when it is revealed that the men are from the Ollengard clan, and they plan to take over this area after wiping off Christopher. However, that is when the beast of the clan, the actual werewolf, comes to Christopher's rescue and kills off all of the men attacking him. An injured and limping Christopher returns home to talk with his wife, only to realize that Gerda has escaped, and what's more, she has framed him by leading a trail to their house. A bloodied, clawed arm lies on the dining table when Christopher gets back, and Gerda is long gone. Feral's issue number 5. It's what they're most afraid of. The issue begins with a yellow truck driving into a barn in Bergen, Minnesota. The driver is Christopher, and he is currently crying. When he gets out of the truck, he is greeted by Fred, and the two mourn the death of the true werewolf, which is currently lying in the truck's bed. They both vow to hunt down whoever did this, and that is when we catch up with Dale, who has trekked through the woods to Bergen. He takes a room for the night in a motel, and while he is sleeping, we see him be haunted by Gerda again, who uses her body to make him do her bidding. Violence seems to play a huge part in her carnal desires, and when Dale is about to do the unthinkable, he wakes up in cold sweats. We see he has an eagle tattoo on his back, and when in the washroom, he tries to trim his sharp nails using a knife, but it's no use. He then borrows garden shears from the motel owner and manages to trim them down, as well as find the location of the nearest gun shop. Dale walks into the shop nonchalantly and buys the most powerful gun in stock, a Hannibal .577. He pretends to be here on a hunting trip, but when the shop owner refuses to reveal where the Ingebrigtsens live, Dale threatens to kill the man. Dale gets the address, but his anger in the shop only fuels his lunacy further. He sweats, and all he can remember while driving is his moments with Gerda in the bar. He begins to speed erratically and fails to notice the spike strip laid out for him in the road. The truck loses control, goes off the cliff, and crashes beside the road below. We are then introduced to the FBI officers again, and their names are finally revealed, albeit not their full names, Agent Marcellus and Agent Shu. They both wait on the banks of a river as as a small, remote-controlled speedboat makes their way towards them. The boat is coloured red, green, blue, and this is supposed to be code for dire circumstances. The boat has a string attached to it, and it seems it was towing a huge case full of specialised weapons for the two agents. They take the trunk into their custody, open the small boat's storage compartment, drop the organ they extracted from Gerda's body in it, and then send it on its way back. The colour code of red, green and blue seems to have spooked Agent Marcellus, and he knows they might not walk out alive of whatever they're walking into. We then see Dale dreaming of Gerda again, and her memory seems to bring him back from the brink of death once again. He wakes up and realises his truck has crashed, but before he can reach for the gun, Fred's arm bursts in through the window and pulls him out. He holds Dale up by the throat, but Dale manages to get away by stabbing Fred through the arm. Dale then beelines for his shotgun and shoots at Fred, but he is no longer there. Dale grabs his Hannibal rifle from the crashed truck, only to then be attacked by Christopher himself. The two fight, and when Dale spots Christopher's claws, he realises he's in big trouble. Christopher flings Dale away, and this is when Fred volunteers to hold him down while Chris gets the chains. However, this was a big mistake because Dale flips in the air and shoots Fred in the face with the Hannibal rifle. His entire face is blown off, and in a fit of rage, Christopher tackles Dale, but Dale is too strong for him. Dale manages to hold Christopher in a chokehold, but just as the latter is about to pass out, he turns around and rips open Dale's guts. Dale picked the wrong day to trim his nails, and when he passes out, Christopher binds him in chains while cursing his wife for sleeping with Dale under his breath. Ferrell's issue number 6, a successful mission. Once again, Dale dreams about Gerda as she eggs him on to complete the job she has set before him. She praises him and lusts for him, but then, unexpectedly, Gerda rips his guts out in the dream, just like Christopher had in real life, and all of a sudden, Dale wakes up from his slumber. However, he is tied down, his wounds have healed and barfs as soon as he opens his eyes. He screams for help, only to then be greeted by Christopher. Dale blames him for all that has happened, blames Christopher for killing his own wife and then sending his trained animal to complete the job. But Christopher doesn't get angry. He simply carries Dale out of the barn while promising him that he has much to learn. We then see Agent Shu and Marcellus driving towards Bergen, and the sight of the red, blue and green boat still has them spooked, and this is why Marcellus asks Agent Shu about his personal life for the first time in 3 years. Shu knows why Marcellus is doing this, so he doesn't hold back. Shu has a sister, a wife and kids, so Marcellus is now more scared and wants to ensure that they survive this mission. The two of them track Dale to the local gun store and head inside to question the owner. They are the second people today to inquire about the Ingebrigtsens, and the owner knows something is wrong. He tries to avert their questions, but the agents aren't to be messed with. Shu slams the man against the wall, and when he tries to reach for his gun, Marcellus kicks him in the face. Marcellus continues questioning the man while we see Shu texting his family, "I love you." Clearly, even though he puts up a brave face in front of Marcellus, he is as scared of this mission as his partner is. We then see Christopher dragging Dale to the nearest well and pouring a bucket of water. Christopher then begins to laugh because Dale thinks that the wolf infected him, while in fact it was Gerda who infected him. Chris knows that Dale likely dreams about her each night, and it's the reason why he's so hell-bent on ending his clan. Christopher is bullying and making fun of Dale because it's the only thing keeping him from killing Dale. We then catch up with Shu and Marcellus again, and their conversation reveals that they're a division of the FBI tasked with hunting the supernatural. Marcellus is a new recruit, but Shu is a veteran, so when the rookie questions if all of this can be true, Shu tells him about the incident in 2004 that convinced him of the supernatural. That year, he arrested a man who claimed to have the devil inside of him. The man then spontaneously regurgitated all his organs and killed himself. The sight of this happening is what drove Shu's previous partner mad, and a month after this event, his partner brutally murdered his wife. When he was arrested, Shu's partner claimed that the devil inside him from that case had jumped into his wife a month later, which is why he had to kill her. Marcellus is spooked, but he still believes that the biggest monster out there is man himself. Shu tells him to hold on to his cards because the truth is about to be revealed very soon. We then see them entering the Ingebrigtsen property, and the signs leading up to it promise a brutal death for any civilian or government agent that tries to trespass. We then see Chris dragging Dale back towards another barn on the property, and we see that Gerda constantly haunts Dale. She is angry this time, and she wants Dale to man plan up and exact revenge. Chris tells him that they call this condition feral and then drags him into the barn where everyone else has gathered around the body of the werewolf. Dale learns that they're a cult, and this condition has infected them since the time of the Vikings. The werewolf is one of them, and their beliefs state that it possesses the body of their wolf god, who has been known by different names like Fenrir, Grendel, and Ulfionar through the ages. They have preserved this spirit for thousands of years, so now that the current host is dying, another one will volunteer for the job. The cult had already drawn lots, and unfortunately, a young boy named Aaron had been chosen at random. Thankfully, now that Dale has been captured, he will be the one who will drink the dying werewolf's blood and become a vessel for the spirit. Dale vows to kill them all once he has been turned, but Christopher assures him that he will no longer be himself after the transformation. Shu and Marcellus have reached the property while the people inside are now slitting the werewolf's throat to gather the necessary blood. Men hold down Dale as he recoils in horror at the sight of the blood. In desperation, he tries to abuse them, calls them names and stereotypes cults, but Christopher orders them to go through with the process. But suddenly, bang! A gunshot echoes through the air, and the man trying to force the blood down Dale's gullet is shot in the neck. Shu and Marcellus are here, and they're gunning down the entire cult one by one. They shoot down men, women and children without mercy. And seeing this, Christopher chops off Shu's left arm. Marcellus tries to come to his rescue, but Christopher jumps out of the way and ambushes Marcellus while he tries to check in on Shu. Chris holds him by the throat, but that is when Shu manages to grab his gun and shoot Christopher in the chest. Everyone is dead. And when they check up on Dale, he laughs and tells them to make sure the job is done. He laughs and tells them to shoot everyone again for good measure. And we see he's laughing because in his vision, he is in Gerda's arms, lit by angelic light now that his mission has been completed. Feral's issue number 7, the beginning of a new chapter. The issue opens up with Dale's dream, and in this dream, he is in his full feral form, feasting on a human body while goring it endlessly. He rips chunks of flesh and feasts on them, and when we get closer, it's revealed that he is mutilating Gerda. The shock of this realization and visual snaps him awake instantly, and Dale surprisingly wakes up in a hospital bed. He instantly touches his face because all he remembers is being shot there when Agent Shu and Marcellus showed up in the barn, but it's like nothing ever happened. His face is as good as new, but it seems his problems have only just begun, because when the nurse spots that he has woken up, she calls in the officers standing guard outside, and 2 men armed with machine guns restrain Dale, handcuff him, and get him ready for a meeting with their superiors, Agent Schoenfeld and Gordon Crane, their boss. Dale is quite angry that he is being held against his will, but Agent Shu tells him that he's doing great, considering all that he has been through. After all the murders in Cyprus and Bergen can be pinned to him easily, including Marcellus's death. Dale begins to scream and curse because they are setting him up, but that is when their boss, Gordon Crane, intervenes and calms them both down. He reveals to Dale that they've run various tests on him while he was asleep. He has superhuman healing, bones as strong as steel, and nails as sharp as knives. It's the reason the nurses have been trimming them down regularly. Gordon is here for one single reason. He wants to hire Dale. The salary will be way higher than what the sheriff department was paying him, and the department will cover most of his expenses. After all, if Dale tries to deny this job offer, he will be going to jail. All the murders will be pinned on him, and he will likely be on the death row within a month. Dale understands, and this is when Gordon reveals that there are 4 more towns where they suspect ferals to be active. Dale is to infiltrate these towns and find out everything he can. Each suspected town has a significant number of people that are of Norwegian descent, and this is when Dale realizes that there might be some truth to Christopher's claims that he and his people were descended from Vikings. When Dale agrees, he is assigned a new identity, Sven Halvorson. He is to be a married man, and an agent named Pia will be acting as his wife. Their first destination is Green Gorge, Washington, and Dale, and Pia drive down to the town the very next day. Dale tries to hit on Pia when they stop for lunch, but Pia is a true professional, and she turns him down and asks him to act like they've been married for 6 years, and by now, any spark they had vanished a long time ago. When they stop at a motel that night, Dale tells Pia how these cults are male-dominated societies, and that he might have to get a bit violent when acting the part out. Pia thinks that this is Dale trying to hit on her, but the next day, when they reach Green Gorge, things turn for the worse. They try to establish themselves in town by visiting the pub, and although Pia tries to take charge, when Dale smells a burly-looking man nearby, something takes over him. and he begins to act aggressively. He orders a beer and inquires about hunting in the area. After all, according to their disguise, they're here on a hunting trip. When Pia tries to intervene, he slams his beer down, holds her by the throat, and tells her to go outside and wait in the car. When he mentions hunting wolves by drugging them, the burly-looking man steps in, and when Dale eggs him on, they begin to fight. Dale elbows the man and then punches him again and again while he's on the ground. He then bites the man's neck and rips out a piece of flesh before walking out. As Dale walks out, he mentions that he knows that the man will heal pretty soon because he's just like him, heavily implying that he already knows that he's one of the ferals. When the barkeep asks Dale's name, Dale gives them the name Sven Halverson and tells them that he'll be camping in Deer Pines for the entire summer. Pia watches all of this unfold, and she is taken aback by Dale's feral nature, which continues to haunt him the entire day. At night, once Dale is okay, he tries to apologize to Pia, tries to tell her that once he caught another feral's scent, something took over him and he wasn't able to control himself. Pia, on the other hand, has been quite turned on by Dale, which is why they end up sleeping with each other that night. Once the deed is done, Pia checks her neck and finds the marks left by Dale when he grabbed her by the throat. She questions her decision, but goes back to sleep in Dale's arms nonetheless. However, when we pan outside, we see that the werewolf of this area's cult is already on their scent, and he is currently right outside their house. Ferals issue number 8, The Headless Horseman. The issue begins with a feral Dale bounding his way through snowy mountains. Just like previous dreams, Dale here has overgrown hair. He is menacing, and this time he is stalking Pia. Pia has her back turned to him, but when she sees him, she lets out a guttural scream. This dream is contrasted by Pia and Dale making love to each other in the present day. The emotions are high and the movements are intense. So intense, in fact, that when Dale pins Pia down, he unfortunately scratches her face. However, this quickly ends when Dale hears a knock on the door. Two men, Adolf and Nick, are here to greet him, and although they seem friendly, they want Dale to follow them. Dale dresses up and tells Pia that these are likely the cultists of the area that have come for him after last day's brawl. Dale tells her to take care of herself, while Pia tells him she'll go to the market to do her own recon. Dale leaves nonchalantly, but Pia is in a daze. After all, they were just making love, and Dale just scratched her head. Yet in an instant, they're both acting like professionals, as though there are no feelings involved. Pia checks the scratch marks and then questions herself. Why is she attracted to Dale? Why does she go through the motions? Why doesn't she say anything when he hurts her while they're making love? She puts these thoughts aside and decides to call Agent Shu to report what they've learnt, which is not that much in this case. But through their conversation, we learn that Dale wasn't posted in Green Gorge out of the blue. This was all planned from the beginning. Shu and Pia both know that the area is the hunting grounds for a serial killer colloquially called the Headless Horseman. He's called this because he takes his victims' heads as trophies. Shu decides to keep Dale in the dark because he knows if Dale knew about the serial killer, he'd try to play cowboy. The conversation ends, and we switch to Dale being driven into the woods by Adolf and Nick. Dale tries to make small talk, but the two of them seem to be focused on what's coming next. They drive up to a cliff and force Dale to stand with his back against the edge. They point their guns at him and force him to undress. Adolf then reveals that they know he isn't Sven. His real name is Dale, and because he was ballsy enough to claim that he hunts wolves yesterday, they want him to go out into the forest and hunt whatever he can. Adolf tosses an address to his place to Dale in case he survives, and then forces him to go into the woods and hunt while in his underwear. This hazing is contrasted by Pia's visit to the supermarket, which is going as good as you might expect. The local women hate her, and she can already spot them eyeing her in the store. Once she has bought all her supplies, they ambush Pia before she can get in her truck, and their conversation implies that the women suspect her to be sleeping with one of their husbands. Pia fights back and tries to run away, but she is quickly knocked to the ground and dragged into a nearby truck. This is happening in broad daylight, and the entire town seems to be ignoring this event. These women seem to have a lot of power, which is why no one seems to bat an eye. They strip Pia down in the truck, and then one of them sniffs her privates. Nothing. Pia isn't the one who is sleeping with their husbands. and so the entire cabal of women stops dead in their tracks. Their supposed leader tries to apologize to Pia, but she has had enough. Pia punches the woman and breaks her nose, but it seems that they're used to it. After all, the leader takes it like a champ and says to Pia that she probably deserved that after all she's gone through. We then see Dale in the woods. It's dusk, and this is the 15th deer he's stalking, and unfortunately for him, he's downwind, and the deer is able to catch his scent quickly. Dale misses his chance to kill a prey yet again, and for a moment, he loses hope. However, while he's in the river, the scent of iron distracts him, and once he follows it, he finds a mutilated deer corpse. He has seen this before, and this doesn't bode well for him. We then catch up with Pia and the women. The women have apologized to her, and they seem to be getting along pretty well. They talk about Pia's scars, talk about their personal lives, and as the camera pans to the wall, we learn that the woman who hit Pia initially is Nick's wife. Pia has been on the hunt for a local newspaper, and once she finds one here, she asks to borrow it. The leading story is about an entire school bus of teenage boys going missing, and she pretends to be interested in this story for the thrill of it. After all, the place where it happened, Plain Fork, it's only 40 miles from where they currently reside. We then see Dale stumbling through the woods. He seems to have found the werewolf's den, adorned by deer heads propped up on branches and stakes. But before Dale can gather his thoughts, he's ambushed in an instant, and the werewolf manages to slash his back. Dale picks up a stone, fights back and runs away, only to then stumble his way into an abandoned school bus covered in blood and rubble. Inside are decapitated bodies of children, and when he turns around, dozens of adolescent werewolves come rushing towards him. Feral's issue number 9, The Origin of a Monster. The story now gives us some clues into what's happening in Green Gorge. We see the events from a year ago when a woman managed to seduce Senator Rogers of Washington. They spend the night together, only to then be ambushed by a man named Rickard once the deed is done. Rogers is married, and at first he thinks this is going to be some kind of sexual blackmail. But no, this is far worse. The woman was a she-wolf, and now that Rogers has been infected, Rickard and his harem tempt the senator by offering him a young woman that they've kidnapped. Rogers' instincts and temptations get the better of him, and he leaps at the kidnapped woman hungrily, while Rickard and the rest film the entire scene for their own gain. A month later, we see Rickard and Adolf arguing with each other in a diner. Through their conversation, we learn that Rickard was smart enough to blackmail the senator so that the things happening in Green Gorge would be looked over. But Adolf fears that Rickard is swaying away from his duties. For 1,000 years, they've maintained this tradition and kept their feral kind a secret, but Rickard seems to be outgrowing this safety and dreaming for something big. When Adolf tries to ask Rickard to stand down, the latter simply leaves the diner while accepting that Jarl Adolf and him can't see eye to eye. We then see Nick offer to kill Rickard before he does anything stupid, but Jarl Rickard asks them to stand down. After all, Rickard is the keeper of wolves in their sacred order, and killing him would mean dissension. We then see Rickard doing everything to control his carnal desires. He makes love to a man in a random club's washroom in Seattle, and when the man's skills prove inadequate, Rickard kills him in cold blood. His mutilated body is found by the police the next day, and this gives us a glimpse into how ruthless Rickard can be. We then see Jarl Adolf and his clan confronting Rickard at his home in the mountains a few days later. Rickard has been killing too many people in the area. He's been termed as the Headless Horseman by the media, and unfortunately, he's gathered enough attention that the FBI has launched an investigation. This is not the way of their kind. This isn't how they keep things hidden from the public. And now that Rickard has broken the unspoken code, they're all here to put him down. Rickard sits on the porch nonchalantly as his harem of women as well as countless heads on stakes surround him. Adolf tells Rickard that it's all over, but that's when a pack of werewolves emerges from the woods and begins to attack Jarl Adolf and his men. This is perversion. This goes against everything the ferals stand for. Rickard has been making wolves in hiding, and this puts more than their lives at stake. It puts their kind at stake. Seeing that most of his friends and loved ones are falling to the wolves, Adolf calls for peace, and Rickard decides to give in. He pulls out his horn and blows on it, which causes the wolves to retreat. Rickard now holds all the cards, which unfortunately makes him the new Jarl. He makes a new deal with Adolf. They will supply him with all the humans they require for food, and Rickard will ensure that his wolves don't attract too much attention. Adolf has no choice but to agree with him, and 3 weeks later, we see Adolf and his friends kidnapping a karate instructor as the latest latest victim for Rickard and his wolves. The very next day, we see Rickard training his wolves using the karate teacher's head, but unfortunately, the wolves are too feral to understand the nuance that he's trying to teach them. We then learn that his preferred partner is Sophie, and the fact that Rickard hasn't hurt her yet while making love to her is proof to him of his will and strength. Sophie is his unmarred love, and she is proof that what he's doing is right. Another week later, we see one of the women from his harem picking up boys from a nearby school in Kennewick, Washington. She drives the bus to Green Gorge, and they're stopped midway by Rickard. He threatens the boys, takes their phones and cameras, but after that, they're led to a lavish dinner where his harem awaits them. They offer the boys food, wine, and once the time has come, they sleep with them one by one. By night, everyone has passed out, and those that haven't are being told stories of valor by Rickard. He then pulls out a stone with the same mark that we saw on the organ that Agent Shu retrieved from Gerda's autopsy. Rickard tells the boys that this stone was left by the first Viking that touched American soil, and that he was a wolf. He had the spirit of Fenrir, and this is what they're responsible for now that they've slept with his women. The women arrive and feed the blood of the wolf to the boys under the pretext that it's a ritual, but once the deed is done, the boys begin barfing, and Rickard simply puts them in chains for the next part of his plan. This is when we see Adolf and Nick struggling with the future of their clan/cult. They don't know how they're going to survive Rickard's onslaught, but they seem to have an ace up their sleeve. They've been keeping a close eye on Dale. They know what he did back in Bergen, and they're hoping that he's man enough to take on Rickard. All they have to do is test him, and this is why in the last comic we saw Rickard and Adolf sending out Dale for a hunt in his underwear. They don't want him to hunt prey, they're hoping he hunts Rickard. Ferrell's issue number 10, Special. It's another one of Dale's dreams, and he's climbing a mountain this time. Feral and covered in blood, Dale reaches the top while carrying Pierre's decapitated head. And at the top, there's a huge pile of severed heads belonging to people he once knew and people that he currently knows. Dale lets out a primal howl, which snaps him out of his daze in the current day. Hundreds of wolves are attacking him, and his only chance at survival is the school bus. He hides in it, but when the wolves manage to break through, he grabs one of the springs from a broken seat and stabs one of them in the eye. He then hotwires the bus, but before leaving, he is forced to throw out the fire extinguisher in order to knock out the wolves currently covering the windshield. Dale steps on the gas and manages to crush one of the wolves under the bus, but that is when they break in through the sunroof, and Dale barely manages to duck behind the seat to barely avoid the claws aimed at him. Unfortunately, he's lost control of the bus and it's about to drive into a ravine, and so Dale decides to jump out before he is locked in with these wolves in the valley down below. Dale survives, but the wolves don't stop chasing him. They slash at his back, they slash at his ankles, and when Dale falls down, he decides that he has had enough. He is done running, and if this is how he's supposed to die, then he's ready to make his final stand. Dale gets back up on his feet and is about to go toe-to-toe against at least a dozen wolves, but that is when a loud horn echoes through the forest, and each and every wolf retreats. It's Rickard, and he's been watching Dale struggle the entire day. He appreciates Dale's valor, appreciates how resilient Dale has been, which is why he decides to take Dale back to his house in order to patch him. They bandage his arm, stitch his back, and Rickard's harem of women begins to take care of Dale. Rickard suspects that Dale is an assassin, and seeing as how the man can control hundreds of wolves at once, Dale decides it's best not to lie. He tells him the truth, tells Rickard how Adolf and Nick ambushed him, how he's just a man running away from his life after what happened in Bergen, and this is enough to convince Rickard. He buys the story, and Dale seems to have earned his trust. We then catch up with Pierre. She is currently with Lisa, Nick's wife, and Lisa is doing her best to console Pierre. Dale has been gone for days, and though Pierre knows better, she can't help but worry about him. Through their conversation, we learn that Lisa's child isn't exactly hers. The child belongs to the woman Nick had an affair with, and the only reason she's keeping quiet is to save Nick's life. If the cult gets to know that Nick slept with a normal human woman, they would kill their entire family. But through this conversation, we also learn that Pierre is pregnant. Lisa is damn sure about it, and it's the reason why Pierre is so madly in love with Dale, aka Sven. That is when Nick shows up at the house, and while Lisa is gone, he tries to hit on Pierre while she asks him about Sven, aka Dale. Pierre leaves the house disgusted, and Lisa promptly berates her husband for being a perv. We then catch up with Dale and Rickard again. Rickard's house proves why he's called the Headless Horseman. Heads are mounted mounted as trophies throughout his entire house, and the man eats nothing but human brains for dinner. He questions Dale about his past, and just like before, Dale tells him everything. He tells him his real name, tells him about Bergen, tells him what happened with Christopher and Gerda, but conveniently leaves out the part where the FBI saved his life. Rickard buys the story and invites Dale to join his cause. He treats Dale compassionately and tells him that he's free to leave whenever he wants. Upon hearing this, Dale decides to go back to his lodge, and once he is gone, we see that Rickard already knows that Adolf had sent him. Rickard is playing the game, which is why he sent back Dale. We also learn that Rickard has been microdosing himself with wolf blood daily, and although he won't lay hands on Sophie, he doesn't mind being brutal to the other women that surround him. Dale returns to the lodge that night, and Pia is furious at him. She slaps him for being gone for almost 10 days, but then the very next second, she asks him to make love to her. Once they're done, they head to the barbecue hosted by Lisa, only for Dale to then punch Nick in the face for what he commented about Pia earlier. We then see him meet up with Adolf, and Dale brings them a head of a deer as his hunting trophy. Adolf is disappointed, but when Dale reveals that he knows about Rickard and knows why he needs to be taken down a notch, Adolf gives in. He trusts Dale now, so he offers Dale the job of town sheriff. He tosses the star to Dale and tells him that they need to stop Rickard at all costs, otherwise the world would know about their kind, and they will be hunted to the ends of the earth. We then see Pia and Lisa having a conversation, and unfortunately, Nick's baby that Lisa has been caring for is sick. If he dies due to being poisoned by Nick due to the unnatural circumstances of the birth, Nick will be exposed and the clan would kill him. The only way for Lisa to survive is by killing the child herself before that happens, and although Pia hates it, she sympathizes with Lisa. We then see Dale and Pia back at the lodge. The entire room is trashed, and it seems that they had a wild night. Unfortunately, now they need to worry about Shu. They need to inform him what's going on, and although Dale wants to come clean, Pia urges him not to reveal the entire truth. If he tells them about Rickard, about the cult, about the wolves, then the FBI will come down here with all the power they have and wipe everyone out. There are innocents in this town, and if they are to do this properly, they need a better strategy. After all, Pia is pregnant, and when Dale hears this, he has no choice but to stall Shu. Shu isn't happy with the results. He's screaming at Dale, but Dale promises to get him answers in the next few days. Once Shu has bought the story, Dale tries to be supportive and sympathetic towards Pia. After all, she's pregnant, but all she wants is another wild ride with him before the night ends. Unfortunately, while Pia lies on the bed enticingly in front of him, Dale can't help but remember the dream he had earlier that day. The sight of Pia's decapitated head still haunts him. Ferrell's issue number 11, An Eye for an Eye. The comic begins by showing us Shu along with scientists employed by their department. They've autopsied every victim, including the true werewolf, and what they've found is nothing short of astounding. They've learnt that the ferals have superhuman strength and healing, and that when the wolf blood is mixed with feral blood, a metamorphosis takes place. They've concluded that this is how true wolves are made, and that the ferals continue their lineage through women because they have an extra gland behind the vestibular gland in their bodies which aids this process when making love. We then see Dale and Pia making love, and just like every feral, Dale is too rough, but Pia endures through it. He dislocates her shoulder, but she hides the pain. The next morning, through their conversation and daily routine, we learn that Pia and Dave have been in Green Gorge for 2 months now. Shu is losing patience, so Dale has decided to hand over Rickard because he's the headless horseman. He's going to have to do this tactically and make sure the town survives the assault, and that's because Pia's pregnant and they want to settle here once all of this is said and done. We then see what Dale is planning. He, Jarl Adolf, Nick, and other trusted men from the clan are going to storm Rickard's place tonight. Once they have killed everyone, handing over the bodies to the authorities will ensure there's no more bloodshed. Adolf has managed to get them high-caliber guns, and they're going to use the cover of the storm tonight to ensure the massacre goes unnoticed. The night comes, and we see that Pia has plans of her own. She sets her shoulder back in place by hitting it against a wall and then phones Siri. The two of them drive to Lisa's place, and we learn that the women have their own plan to take care of Lisa's stepson before the clan discovers Nick's infidelity and ends their lives. Pia overdoses the baby with anesthesia, and once the baby is dead, they're going to make the switch. After the deed is done, Siri drives Pia back to her cabin, and we see that Pia has a newfound respect among the women of the clan. The scene quickly shifts to Dale, Adolf, and Rick storming Rickard's place under the guise of the storm. So far, things are looking good, and Adolf, Dale, and another one of their men decide to head inside the house while the rest of them keep watch outside. The house is empty and barren, but as Dale heads deeper, he hears a wolf grunting in the nearby cellar. When they head inside, they find a wolf breeding one of Rickard's women, and once they're discovered, Dale shoots the wolf again and again until it's dead. The woman tries to fight back, but Dale easily knocks her off of his back. He holds her at gunpoint and demands answers, but that is when Sophie and the rest of the girls show up to rescue their sister. They disarm the three men, and during this process, Dale notices that all of them are pregnant, and that's when he realizes what Rickard is doing. He's breeding wolves with the women of his clan to give birth to a new species. Dale fights back and disarms Sophie, and that is when Nick and the rest of the men show up to control the situation. The problem is that the wolves are here, and this is when Dale decides to hold one of the pregnant women hostage. He takes her outside and threatens to kill her and her baby if the wolves attack. Surprisingly, this tactic works, and the wolves go away. The woman runs inside, and this is when Adolf shows up to tell Dale that none of the women will tell them where Rickard is. That is when Dale reveals to Adolf that it doesn't matter if their clan is to survive. If this town is to survive, then everyone needs to be dead when the FBI discovers them, because if either of Rickard's people is alive, they will tell the FBI everything, and that would mean the end of them all. We then abruptly cut to the town of Chonawa, Washington, which is around 80 miles from Green Gorge. An elderly man's pit bull is going crazy in the yard, and when he shows up to calm the dog down, he finds out what has it spooked. Hundreds of werewolves are swarming the town, and they begin massacring everyone in sight. Sleeping, working, driving, every person in town is now a victim of the werewolves. Streets are covered in gore, blood, and screams as the attack reaches its peak at midnight. We then see Pia show up at Lisa's house in the middle of the night once again. She has managed to procure the dead body of another infant from a nearby morgue. They're going to pretend that the dead child was Nick and Lisa's son, while the overdosed infant is left outside a firehouse so that he can be taken into the system as an orphan. This is the best way to ensure that the child lives while Nick and Lisa are also safe. Lisa does what needs to be done, but when she arrives back at the house, she finds Dale hyperventilating on the couch. He has done something horrible, and as we switch back to Rickard's place, we see what has him spooked. Rickard is back from the attack on Chonawa, and unfortunately, he finds his house trashed with a huge pile of bodies waiting for him. All of his women, all of his unborn children, and at least a dozen wolves are piled in the middle of the living room as a warning sign for him. Feral's issue number 12, Blood for Blood. Dale is once again haunted by his true feral form, now looking for prey in snow-covered mountains as he reveals to Pia what happened once they could not find Rickard. Dale knew that he couldn't leave anyone alive, and that's what he told Adolf and his men. Dale had expected that they would shoot the women, but they all went ballistic. They went feral and cut down the women like prey. They violated their bodies and left them in a pile for Rickard to find. Dale is horrified and shaken to his core, but Pia kisses him and assures him that he did what needed to be done. However, this tender moment is suddenly broken by the arrival of bright lights outside the house. They hear footsteps on the roof, and for a moment Dale fears that Rickard has found them. Unfortunately, it's worse. It's the army, and they quickly handcuff Pia and Dale while they try to tell the soldiers that they're working with the FBI. Fortunately, Chief Gordon and Agent Shaw arrive on the scene to save the day, but Shu and Dale aren't exactly on good talking terms. They begin arguing, and though Dale did his best by offering up Rickard to the apartment, the fact that he failed to mention that Rickard has an army of wolves has Shu and Gordon on edge. The town of Chonawa was just massacred, every resident was ripped apart, and now the FBI will need to answer for 3,500 dead bodies. Gordon calms Shu and Dale down, and once they're thinking straight, they both realise that just like Dale, Rickard used the storm to cover the massacre in Chonawa, meaning he should be back at his cabin in the woods by now. The FBI decides to storm Rickard's place and bring him in, and so the next panel shows us at least 24 helicopters flying through the air towards Rickard's place, while hundreds of soldiers armed to the teeth follow their lead from the ground. They have Humvees, tanks, helicopters, miniguns, but unfortunately, matching the might of the werewolves is going to be a Herculean task. Dale and Shu are in one of the helicopters, and they fail to notice the werewolves that are already stalking them. One of them has climbed a tall tree, and when the moment is right, the wolf Werewolf jumps and manages to grab onto one of the helicopters. And so the attack begins, and hundreds of werewolves leap out of the shadows all at once. The soldiers are in complete disarray, and within minutes, dozens have been ripped to shreds, and at least 4 Humvees have crashed. The wolf that jumped onto the helicopter manages to take it down by killing every soldier on board, and though this is not how they planned things, Shu and Dale decide to continue the assault. They land near Ricard's house and begin storming towards it with at least half a dozen soldiers in tow. We then switch to the town hall where Adolf is trying to calm down the entire town. He's trying to tell them that the FBI is here for Ricard, but they're all panicking because they could come for them if they manage to take him alive. That is when Pia shows up on the scene and reveals the truth to them. She tells them that she's an FBI agent, tells them to stay calm and act like normal citizens. She asks the men to shave and trim their nails in case the FBI decides to search the town, and she also tells them about the massacre in Chonawa. They're to think that this was all done by terrorists that lived among them, and after the massacre, the USA has decided to change the name of this town. It is no longer called Green Gorge. From this day forward, Chonawa and Green Gorge are merged and will now be known as Mayberry. Siri tries to snap back at Pia, but Pia tells them that she's trying to help. It's the only way they will survive, because if the FBI gets a whiff of their clan, they will wipe out everything. The massacre in the woods continues. Dozens of wolves are dead, but hundreds of soldiers outnumber them in terms of bodies. Ricard is watching this entire scene from a hill, and right now he is joined by the rest of the Jarls from different clans. They don't approve of what he's doing. Even though the wolves he has bred show promise, they aren't worth the risk. But Ricard is no longer doing this to take over the world. He's doing this for revenge. He's doing this because Dale killed his one true love, Sophie. They try to stop Ricard, but he snaps, kills one of them, and then leaps down into the woods to join the fight. The other Jarls don't follow him because these are his woods, but they also know that once this is all said and done, they will have a massive cleanup job on their hands. We then see Dale and Shu entering Ricard's house, and once Dale walks in, he finds the pile of dead bodies he left here earlier. They still send shivers down his spine. The sight still horrifies him, but nonetheless he decides to pour alcohol on the pile and set it ablaze. One thing puzzles him. Sophie's body is missing from the pile, and that is when Ricard attacks Dale and tells him that he buried Sophie all on his own. He slashes Dale and gravely injures him, and before Dale passes out, Ricard promises to return the favour by killing Pia. Covered in blood, Dale wakes up minutes later. He quickly stumbles out of the house and demands Shu hand over his phone. We then see Pia back at the house reporting her findings to Chief Gordon. Her cover is blown, and she promises to return to the department the very next day. She's fixing her injuries, trying to cover them up using makeup, and that is when she hears the front door open. She thinks it's Dale and heads outside, and this is when, unfortunately, she misses Dale's call. A few minutes later, choppers arrive outside, and Dale desperately runs inside to save Pia, but unfortunately, Ricard has done the job. He has killed Pia and Dale's unborn child. Feral's issue number 13, Aftermath. Things aren't looking great for Green Gorge. Ricard's house has been destroyed and the military has taken over the town. Most of the residents are in hiding, and those that aren't don't feel safe either. Hundreds of soldiers swarm the streets, and Agent Shu is currently trying to talk to Adolf, but Jarl Adolf knows his rights. He doesn't have to talk to Shu unless he has a warrant. Through their brief conversation, we learn that a temporary HQ has been established in the town square, and that Adolf is telling the townspeople to stay quiet. Shu insists and implores Adolf to consider otherwise because the next person knocking on this door might not be as good as him. Sadly, Adolf is on the edge, and before Shu can finish his sentence, he's already shut the door on him. We then see that the real problem the clan is facing is because Dale has gone missing. He took off toward the north of Green Gorge once he found out that Pia had been murdered. Nick and Adolf talk, and through them we learn that Dale has been hunting Ricard ever since. But Adolf is desperate right now. They need someone who can negotiate with the FBI, and their best bet right now is to find Dale. Adolf tasks Nick with finding Dale while he tries to contain this crisis in town as best as he can. Their conversation also implies that the massacre in Chonawa is nothing compared to what the FBI will discover if all of them are arrested. We then catch up with Dale in the mountains north of Green Gorge. His hair has grown out and he is snarling and snapping at thin air just like an angry wolf. He continues to track Rickard, and finally reaches the town of Fordbridge, British Columbia. Everyone in town stares at him, but Dale beelines for the only shopkeeper in town that stinks of Rickard. He holds the man by the throat while demanding answers, but it turns out Rickard is long gone. His daughter tries to defend him, but he knows what Dale is, and in order to protect her and himself, he gives up Rickard's last known location. He has a cabin on the Black Mountain, but he tells Dale that he won't find anything there. When Dale reaches the cabin, he finds it burned to a crisp. The man was right, and Rickard was here 4 days ago, which means Dale still has a lot of tracking to do. But the state of the cabin puzzles him. There are skeletons among the soot, skeletons that belong to werewolves and humans, skeletons that have been tied down on gurneys with restraints. And this is when Dale picks up Rickard's scent once again. Unfortunately, it leads him to a trashed wardrobe that only contains used panties of women that Rickard has slept with in this town. We then see Chief Gordon and Agent Shu, and through their conversation, we learn that the matter has gotten out of hand. They are no longer in charge of this investigation, and the higher-ups have sent a man of their own. Agent Shu hates the man who will now lead the investigation, and his name is Dr. Cherry. Agent Shu knows Cherry is a ruthless prick, but unfortunately, Gordon can't do anything about it. Cherry and Shu butt heads as we switch back to Fortbridge, where Dale has managed to find a pregnant woman that still carries Rickard's seed. Through their conversation, we learn that she isn't pregnant with Rickard's child, but rather she is carrying the child of a werewolf. She is one of Rickard's horrific experiments, and when her father bursts into the room to save her, we see that it is the same man who gave Dale Rickard's location earlier. Dale quickly disarms him while the girl begs for her father's life. Unfortunately, Dale is out for revenge, which means killing every woman Rickard holds dear. But this is when the father of the girl reveals that all the ferals of the area got together 2 days ago to finish what Rickard had started. They too were appalled by his experiments, and after his army was cut in half by the massacre in Green Gorge, they decided to attack him. They killed most of his wolves, and then rounded all of the girls that he or the wolves had bred. They burned them all, but in that frenzy, the man managed to save his daughter Thea by hiding her in the woods. They know who Dale is and what he fights for. The man begs for help and begs him not to kill Thea, but that is when the window beside them shatters and a werewolf attacks them. Dale shoots and draws it away from the house, but then when he gets down into the closed shop below, he finds at least a dozen more wolves waiting for him. The old Dale would have been scared, but not this one. He is angry, and this face-off is a great way to let off some steam. He shoots and kills the first wolf, but suddenly one of them manages to wrestle the gun away from him. Dale finishes this off the old-fashioned way and decapitates one of the wolves with his bare hands. This is when one of them manages to bite him in the torso, but Dale is ready to fight to death. However, this is when Thea arrives on the scene and orders the wolves to stop. They're here to save her, and she tells them that Dale isn't a danger to her. The wolves are protecting the wolf cub that she is carrying, and after she explains all of this to Dale, she decides to do him one better and save his life. She cuts her leg and feeds her blood to Dale in order to help him heal the wounds. We then head to Green Gorge again and see that the soldiers have been given free rein under Dr. Cherry's jurisdiction. They've cut down all the communication lines in the town and have begun kidnapping people. They have kidnapped kids, and though Gordon and Cherry don't like this, they can't do anything about it. Shu decides to voice his opinion, but when things get heated, the soldiers step in to save the doctor. Cherry is abducting the ferals and plans to take them back to his lab for experimentation. Shu wants to do something about this, and Gordon quietly pulls him aside, hands him a bag of chestnuts, and asks him to go find some more. The message is clear. Shu is to go find Dale Chestnut if he is to end this all. Ferals issue number 14, New Blood. Dale is once again dreaming, but this time he's dreaming of making love to Pia. The session is intense, but unfortunately, just like every dream, it ends horribly. While they're doing, the dead Pia's abdomen suddenly bursts open, and this is when Dale wakes up in cold sweats. He realizes that the man saved his life and is housing him, and when Dale visits Thea, she is in rough shape. Thankfully, the town's doctor stitched up the wound, and although Dale should be hungry for revenge and in pain, that's not the case. Thea's blood has changed him, and his wounds have healed faster than ever before. He can no longer remember Pia's scent, and Thea reveals that he is now devoted to her because of the blood. Her father tries to intervene, but Thea screams at him and sends him away. Dale wants to kill Thea for doing this to him, but it turns out that she is in love with him, and she did all of this because she needs protection, and Dale is the only one that can save her. The two of them kiss, and this is when we head back to Green Gorge. The army's presence is growing by the hour, power, and Ciri and Adolf are on the edge. They both want to fight, but they also know that if they do, they'll be hunted down like animals, and unfortunately the hunt won't stop at them. The government will go after their entire kind. But Adolf has had enough. He orders Ciri to inform everyone to get ready for war. Men need to grow out their nails, and they need to make their final stand as soon as possible. This is when a knock on the door interrupts their conversation, and the visitor is the king of the Ferals, Jarl Viggo. The hierarchy of the Ferals seems quite weird, because their conversation reveals that all women, whether wives or daughters, belong to him. He touches Ciri's face, and she offers herself to him willingly. The conversation continues, and he tells Adolf to hire lawyers and buy time. Viggo and his men will take care of the rest and save them all. He then leads Ciri into the bedroom, and Adolf has no choice but to do as he has been told. This might be weird, but what happens next will make your skin crawl. Dr. Cherry is back in his facility, and he is about to conduct live experiments on Christina Lovick, one of the she-wolves from Green Gorge. She has been separated from her family, and though she screams for a lawyer, Cherry blatantly tells her that she has no rights here. She is merely a subject for his experiments, and he starts by explaining what he has found in his research so far. He shows her the sample of the special gland that she-wolves possess. The symbol on it is a filfot, and it is an ancient Nordic symbol. He wants to know how the women carve the symbol on this organ inside their wombs. He has also tried to manually infect people with the enzymes found in the organ, but never got the desired results. Subjects became temporarily ill, but they never turned feral. So he wants to know how exactly one becomes feral by sleeping with a she-wolf. We all know where this is going, and Christina is currently being strung up by her arms. Cherry then brings in convicted rapists and says that he is going to record his observations while the rapists do what they do best. Meanwhile, in Green Gorge, the clan has had enough, and they are all now swarming the streets, testing the limits of the soldiers. The soldiers stand tall and don't attack them, and Adolf knows that this means there's still time. They walk into the town hall and decide to make it their temporary residence, and through Gordon's conversation with a soldier, we learn that the FBI is keeping the massacre in Chonawa hidden. This is why the involvement of Adolf's lawyers has alerted the media, and this is the reason why soldiers have been ordered to stand down. The media will be here any minute, and their higher-ups are running to come up with a believable excuse. This is why Gordon likes his job. When things get out of hand and someone else is appointed, he gets to watch the show from the sidelines without any responsibilities. Adolf secures the town hall and orders his men to maintain a perimeter day and night. He also learns that the soldiers have kidnapped the Lovick family, and this is contrasted by Thea telling Dale what Rickard did in this town when no one was looking. Back then, nobody knew what Rickard was planning, so the entire town saw him as a hero. 40 women went to him willingly, and he had all of them breed with the wolves. Around 20 died that night, and the ones that survived, out of them, only 14 became pregnant. One died in the 3rd month of the pregnancy, while the rest, well, Dale knows the rest, were burnt alive in Rickard's cabin around 2 days ago. Dale tries to tell Thea that what she is carrying is an abomination, but Thea's maternal instincts get the better of her. She falls to her knees in pain, and knowing that she will be giving birth soon, she makes Dale promise her that he is going to protect her and the baby. Dale promises, and the two begin to make out, only to then be interrupted by Nick, who has finally managed to find Dale. Nick is a sight for sore eyes, and though him and Dale butted heads at first, they seem to like each other now. They shake hands, and Dale catches Nick up to speed. Nick tells him how important it is that he come back to Green Gorge, because if he doesn't, the entire town might be killed. Dale is about to rethink the promise he just made to Thea while putting her to bed, but that is when Thea's father comes running and tells them to hide. The fathers of the women that were taken by Rickard, the one who burned down his cabin, and their own daughters are roaming the streets once again. Dale tells Nick to take Thea and hide in the woods while he handles this. When Nick learns that Thea saved Dale's life by giving him her blood, Nick understands what's at stake here and decides to help them. Dale defiantly walks outside to confront the fathers, but things quickly take a turn for the worse when he gets close, because they all can pick up Thea's scent on him, and they know one of Rickard's women is still alive. They grab Dale and are about to kill him, but when their leader makes the mistake of calling Thea a bitch, something boils wells up inside Dale that manifests in the form of unstoppable rage. He pushes them all off of him, and with one single swipe manages to decapitate the man in front of him. He then plunges his arm straight through the leader's torso and pulls his heart out. Dale breathes heavily, and when he looks up, he realizes everyone is staring at him. How was he able to do that? Ferals are strong, but not that strong. So how did he do this? But the thing is, Dale has never had the answers since all of this started. He has only had the will to see the mission through. Ferals issue number 15. Face Off continues. We pick up where we left off. Dale is trying to talk to the men sent by the fathers, but after seeing his capabilities and what he can do, they think he is one of Ricard's experiments, and they have been ordered to hunt Ricard and any of his experiments they come across. Dale tries to reason with them, but the very next second, bullets come flying through the air and kill two of them. It's the Ferals of the town, and they have decided to stand up against the orders from the fathers. A gunfight breaks out, and Dale barely manages to escape it unharmed. When all is said and done, the townspeople rejoice, hail Dale as their saviour, and thank him for showing them the right path. They too believe that Dale is Ricard's experiment, but the town sees Ricard as their king, so naturally Dale is their hero. However, Dale has had enough. He doesn't have time to correct them or fight them all. He walks off into the woods and tracks down Nick. They've hidden Thea in a pit, and the wolf cub has instinctively found its way to her. She knows that she is about to give birth, and they need to act fast. Meanwhile, in the Winter Mountains, Cherry is busy conducting experiments, and though he allowed the volunteer subjects to violate Christina, the desired outcome was not achieved. None of the subjects have become feral, which baffles all the scientists, including Cherry. Cherry begins to put two and two together. He realizes that all the wolves they're studying are males, which means they're likely the boys from the school bus that went missing. He also concludes that it is likely the human women are the carriers, but the fact that none of the subjects turned feral baffles him. He then decides to conduct another experiment. He takes Christina to see her husband Max, and through his language it is quite apparent that he doesn't see the ferals as humans. He thinks they're inferior beings belonging to a primitive society. Christina's heart naturally melts upon seeing her husband, and this is when Cherry takes a revolver from one of the soldiers. Christina calls out to her husband, and in a fit of rage, Max breaks in through the bulletproof glass after a few hits. Christina tries to reach for him, but this is when Cherry shoots him in the head with a pistol. The bullet grazes his skull, but doesn't penetrate it, and this is when Max decides he has had enough. He leaps at Cherry, but by the time he comes down, Cherry has already unloaded the entire magazine in him. Max is unfortunately dead, and this is when he begins berating Christina. He calls her a filthy animal, and begins to act like the alpha, assuming that ferals rely on wolfpack mentalities. He kicks her to the floor and threatens to kill her children as well. But this is when Christina decides to play his game, and she begins to act provocatively for him. She reveals to Cherry that the she-wolves can control who they give the gift to, which means they can choose who can become feral. Christina now had all the reins, and she could see the hunger in Cherry's eyes. She promises to give him unlimited power, and Cherry looks like he's about to burst a vein. We then see that Thea is in labour, but unfortunately the doctors can't help her. She needs to push, but she's too tired. She knows that she is about to die, and so with her last breath she makes Dale swear that he will do what needs to be done when the time comes. Dale swears, and the very next second, a wolf baby bursts out of her. Thea dies in Dale's arms, and when he turns his anger towards the baby, it's revealed that the baby wolf is a she, and suddenly Nick and Dale realised what Ricard's ultimate goal was. He wanted she-wolves in the werewolf form so that he could breed and control their population endlessly. We then head back to the facility in the Uinta Mountains. Christina did what she had to, and the doctors witnessed a man's transformation into a feral in real time. Cherry and his fellow doctor watch the experiment from the outside as the subject becomes extremely aggressive, but the two of them don't care. They lust for each other, and they begin to make love right there and then, while the feral inside rips people to pieces. The feral manages to kill the doctor, and Cherry's treatment of his partner hints that he might have been turned into a feral as well. We then see the entire town outside waiting for the news. They want to know what became of Thea, but Dale and Nick can't tell them the truth. They already worship Ricard, and they might kill them for what they're about to do. Nick has killed everyone that was present during childbirth. Dale then lays the baby down in Thea's arms, closes her eyes, and sets everyone ablaze. The true Viking funeral. We then see that Agent Shu has arrived in town hot on the trail of Dale. When he tries to question a random shop owner about Dale, he gets distracted by the huge smoke rising from Thea's house. Dale uses this opportunity to knock out the shop owner, and they all decide to drive away in Shu's car before the town hunts them down. During the trip, Shu tells Dale about all that's happened. Adolf and all the townsfolk hiding in the town hall, soldiers patrolling the town in growing numbers, the involvement of lawyers and the media, everything. He also tells Dale about Cherry and how he managed to abduct one family for his horrid experiments. Dale knows that's where he needs to go. He needs to nip this problem at the source, which is Cherry and his facility in the Uinta Mountains. Ferrell's issue number 16, A Well-Placed Agent. We start with a glimpse into Major General Richard W. Arthur's life. He is disciplined, but like Ferrell's, he has a lot of hair. He needs to trim his nails regularly, and his wife has to help trim the nails on his back. She also seems to be scared of him, while he does his best not to get mad at her. He uses pills to suppress his anger, and we see that he is the National Security Advisor at the White House. People in the White House don't seem to trust the CIA, but the general thinks otherwise. He demands a meeting with Bob Hover from the CIA, but a woman named Frida shows up instead. Bob has been missing for 3 days now, and the police are looking into the case. Frida gives the general all the information he needs, and it helps him in his meeting with the president tremendously. They all go out for dinner, and once Frida and Richard are alone, she slips him a key to the Plaza Hotel. The implication is clear, and within a few hours the general and Frida are in the same room together. However, once the deed is done, Richard is conflicted. He has never cheated on his wife. So why did he just do that? He is supposed to be the National Security Advisor, yet he made such a huge mistake. He lies in bed, struggling with his thoughts, until he finally decides to leave. But that is, Frida says, that there's a reason he has to cut his nails daily, trim his hair 2 times a day, and has to take pills to suppress his anger. The reason he showed up to the hotel room wasn't just for sex. He was attracted to her for another reason as well. Frida also knows why the general and his wife have such an awkward relationship. It's because he ended up hurting her in the bed all those years ago. She ended up with a broken jaw, and she was in the hospital for 6 weeks after that. As Richard is about to leave, Frida pleads for him to do one last thing. She wants to take him and show him Bob Haver. The next morning, the general is on edge. He has his firearm out of its holster while Frida drives him to a private ranch. She is awfully calm and even tells the general that if he decides to kill her, there will be no witnesses to implicate him on this farm. However, her calmness keeps getting under the general's skin, but she continues to try and seduce him. She offers to give her body to him, but the general keeps his cool and demands to see Bob. She takes him to a barn, and that's when the general loses his cool. The barn floor is covered in red, with bodies littered in every corner. Limbs, faces, guts and blood cover the entire barn, as though it were a work of art by a twisted individual. She then shows him Bob Hover, who is chained to the wall in a corner, and Frida tells him that he demanded this be done because it was Bob who killed his entire family in the barn. When Frida tells Richard that all of this happened because she slept with Bob, Richard loses his cool and hits her in the face. Unfortunately, this only turns her on even more, and when Richard kicks her again, she knows that it's turning him on as well. Bob asks the general to stop and confesses that he killed his own family. Bob's words also reveal that Jarl Viggo was here when he was turned, and he had tried to warn Bob of what would happen if he met his family too soon. Bob even confesses that killing all of them felt good. He was in some sort of an endless rage which now seems to have subsided after 3 days. He feels much better now, but Richard thinks this is all a game. Maybe Bob was infected by some toxin. Maybe he was given a hallucinogen. Either way, he wants to rescue his friend, and despite Frida's warnings, he takes the key from her and frees Bob. That is when Frida reveals that she has made Bob feral, just like Richard. His bones are now as strong as steel, and his blood is as hot as fire. She then reveals that Richard is special because he was born a wolf. He is stronger and smarter than those that get turned by a she-wolf. He frees Bob and then questions Frida, asking if what she is saying is true. Then why would she come to him now? He is an old man that will die in the next decade or so, and this is when she reveals that she is doing all of this on Viggo's orders. Their survival is in jeopardy, so they have decided to strategically pick the people they will turn feral. She tries to seduce Richard again, but the general resists. Unfortunately, Bob doesn't. The lust in his eyes is apparent, and the feral rage takes over him the next second. He begins slashing at the general because he wants Frida to belong to him. The general runs for his life, but Bob leaps on his back and slashes him a few more times. Bob reveals that he killed his wife and children so that he could be with Frida, and this is when the general knows that what the man is saying is the truth. He picks up a loose floorboard, smacks Bob in the face, and then runs outside. Bob chases him while yelling that born ferals aren't as strong as the world thinks, but Richard stays focused and manages to hide behind hay while Bob continues to yell and gloat. Bob can obviously track his scent, but Richard wasn't hiding. Where there is hay, there is usually a rake, and Bob learns this the hard way when the general stabs one in his neck. He then throws Bob's head at Frida's feet in the barn, and the two make love like rabbits for the entire day. In the evening, Vigo wakes them up, orders them to clean up, and then joins him for dinner. The next day, we see that the general is laser focused on handling the situation in Green Gorge. He demands his aides to learn everything that they can from Chief Gordon, and then orders an emergency meeting with the President, the Secretary of State, Defense, and Homeland Security. He terms this threat bigger than terrorism and says that they need to do everything in their power to contain it. We see that the general has begun growing his nails, and the implication is clear. He's on Vigo's side. But what is Vigo planning? Does he want to save his people, or does he want to sacrifice them? If he wants to save them, why would the general call them a problem and a threat? Mysteries should be answered in the next 2 issues. Ferals issue number 17, Futile Infiltration. We begin the issue in the Uinta Mountains, where Cherry and the rest of the doctors are diligently studying the recently turned subject. They've learned that the ferals have bones as strong as steel, heightened strength, and superhuman smelling and hearing capabilities. But right now, they're about to take things a step further. The man has been strapped to the gurney and is currently flanked by 2 soldiers. A doctor draws some wolf from a bottle, and though the man tries to writhe and flail, the soldiers hold him down and the blood is injected into his neck. The man begins to transform into the true werewolf form right in front of their eyes, and Cherry seems to be reporting all of his findings to the White House as though he is doing some groundbreaking work. He tells the White House about the females and how they are able to turn men feral. We then see soldiers taking turns on Christina as we learn that her real job here is turning as many soldiers as possible. Cherry is keeping an eye on the entire process through a camera, and he has painted the ferals to be a threat to their nation's security. He requests more soldiers at the facility, and his request is immediately granted. We then see the soldiers continuing to take turns with Christina, one after the other. At the same time, Cherry further establishes his facility's importance by saying that he is working to find a way to defeat this species scientifically, when in fact, he seems to be hell-bent on producing more and more of them. We then see Cherry sleeping with Christina that night, and their conversation reveals that General Richards has agreed to send 800 men the next day to protect the facility. Christina reveals that Jarl Vigo will send more she-wolves to cater to the new soldiers, and though Cherry tries to make love to her, Christina pretends to be jealous of Dr. Weintraub, the woman Cherry was making love to earlier. When Christina mentions Vigo's name again, Cherry snaps. Christina had promised that Cherry was going to be the most powerful feral, so why does this Vigo hold such importance? He holds Christina by the throat, and this is when she spins a new yarn. She tells Cherry that Vigo is their king. He is the descendant of Canute the Great, but she makes Cherry believe that he is smarter than Vigo. She tells him to kill Vigo once the plan is almost complete, allowing him to rule all of them. Cherry agrees, but he has begun to hate Christina enough that he decides to visit Dr. Weintraub that night. The standoff in Green Gorge continues, and the media now seems to be covering the entire event daily. Through news broadcasts, we learn that the townsfolk have been labelled as a cult. The massacre in Chonowa has been painted as a huge gas explosion, and that media access to the area has been completely cut off. Inside the town hall, however, things are completely different. Adolf seems to be communicating with Vigo and the rest of the Jarls using a radio, while on the outside, Chief Gordon has once again been given power to control everything. He is currently on the call with General Richards, and it seems that the general is ordering him to storm the town hall as soon as possible. That is when he gets a call from Agent Schoenfeld and learns they're in Camas, Utah. Shu still wants to go ahead with the plan of letting Dale be the bridge between the townsfolk and the military, but Gordon informs him that the ship has sailed. Cherry has spooked the president enough that the soldiers have been ordered to storm the town hall after the president's speech. The president will label them as a terroristic cult, and once that happens, they will storm the town hall. The cult will also be blamed for the missing school bus, as well as the massacre in Chanowa. Gordon tells them that their only hope is to expose Cherry. If they can do that, then maybe the president won't get involved in this case. We then see that Gordon's assistant is quite close to him, too close in fact for the professional environment. Agent Shu, Dale and Nick use a chartered helicopter to land 20 miles outside of the Uinta Mountain facility. The president's speech is 6 hours away, so Dale and Nick decide to run ahead and take care of the facility while Schoenfeld follows them at his own pace. They will take care of the murdering, and Schoenfeld can retrieve the tapes once all is said and done. However, when Dale and Nick reach the facility, they realize that part of it is burning, and there are far more soldiers here than they had expected. Dale, however, is hungry for blood, and the number of soldiers doesn't really matter to him. Both of them rush inside only to find the place completely deserted. They continue checking every room until they stumble upon the medical room, which is covered in blood. A half-eaten torso of a soldier lies on the gurney, and this is when they hear voices coming from the next room. The two of them instantly know that the soldiers are feral and that they have recently been turned. They head inside only to find 3 of them violating one of the she-wolves sent by Vigo. The woman calls them weak little boys, and one of the soldiers blames her and the other women for the entire massacre and shoots her in the head. Nick and Dale's blood boils, and they attack the soldiers instantly. Dale smacks one in the head with his gun, while Nick shoots one in the head at point-blank range. One soldier tries to slash at Dale, but he simply dodges the attack, and then with a single move rips his head off. One of the soldiers is still alive, and though he acts tough at first, he begins to sing like a canary as soon as Nick begins to torture him. He tells them that he came to the facility along with 800 other soldiers. Cherry threw a party for all of them, and the she-wolves entertained them. After that night, many people got sick, and they were taken into the quarantine ward. The soldier didn't know it yet, but they were likely the first of the ferals among them. The other soldiers that weren't taken were slowly turned feral by the girls, but this time the girls were choosy. They made the soldiers fight each other in order to win a night with them, and then, by the end of the day, most of the soldiers had killed each other. Dale thinks that all of this was Cherry's doing. He must have been the one who forced the she-wolves, but Nick laughs in his face and tells him that you can't force a she-wolf to do anything. It's always up to them. They choose who becomes a feral. The remaining soldiers confront Dale and Nick in the next room, but we simply cut away from the confrontation. After an hour or so, Schoenfeld arrives on the scene, and he finds what became of the remaining soldiers. Dale and Nick hacked them all to pieces, and their dismembered bodies currently line the entire floor. He follows Dale and Nick deeper into the facility, only to discover a turned Cherry in a room full of naked bodies. He seems to have been part of an orgy, and unfortunately, in his rage, he has killed Dr. Weintraub. Agent Shu holds Cherry at gunpoint and demands the whereabouts of the Lovics, but Cherry is too caught up in the initial rage that a feral goes through. He doesn't remember the Lovics, but he remembers Christina. She haunts him just like Gerda had haunted Dale, and they all know she has infected him. He tells them that Christina took the passkey to the quarantine facility and left him alone. They all rush to the quarantine ward, only to find Christina messing with the computers. She panics when they call out to her, but when she realizes that it's Nick and Dale, she breaks down in tears. She tells them it's too late to turn back time now. Her husband, Max, is dead. Her 2 children, Max and Albert, were given the wolf blood for experimentation purposes, and her daughter, Heidi, she killed Heidi herself so that soldiers wouldn't touch her. Nick suspects that Christina did all this for revenge, but Christina tells him she isn't smart. She simply wanted to manipulate Cherry so that she could contact Jarl Adolf, but when Vigo got in touch with her, the entire plan changed. This is all his doing, and he and Christina manipulated Cherry into creating over 700 wolves. And Christina isn't crying for her family. She is crying because she has done something terrible. She has just set the 700 wolves free on Vigo's orders. She then puts a gun in her mouth and pulls the trigger. We then see the 700 wolves rampaging through the woods and heading straight for Salt Lake City. Dale, Schoenfeld, and Nick know they will reach there in 3 hours, but the worst part is that their cell phone has no signal, so they can't alert anyone about it. We then see Jarl Adolf get the final order from Vigo, and it's confirmed. He knows what must be done, and orders Sig to fetch the wolf blood from their vault. Ferals issue number 18. It has only just begun. We see Dale running through the Uinta Mountains. He is around 70 miles away from Salt Lake City, but thankfully he stumbled upon the city of Oakley. Unfortunately, the city has been completely decimated. Cars have been destroyed, establishments have been wrecked, and thousands of bodies line the streets. Most have been ripped open, and many have been dismembered. And this is when Dale decides to use Schoenfeld's phone to call Gordon. Gordon is still being shadowed followed by his shady secretary, while Dale informs him about the 700 wolves headed for Salt Lake City. Gordon instantly puts Dale on hold and orders his secretary to contact the National Security Advisor and Colonel Page. He then walks outside for an update from the soldiers, and what he learns doesn't bode well. The people inside stopped all communications 24 hours ago, and they haven't seen any movement in the halls ever since. Gordon knows this is bad, and when we head inside, we see that all of them have gathered in a huge hall for Adolf's speech. He riles them up, talks about their lineage, talks about how the Vikings were the first on this land and that they have more claim to it than these Americans. His speech continues and he tells the people how it was easy to handle such things back in the day. You could keep people quiet. But in this modern day world of the internet and surveillance, that is no longer an option. This speech is contrasted by a huge horde of werewolves headed for Salt Lake City, children playing outside in a preschool spot them pretty early on, and when they get closer, and the teacher realizes what's coming for them, she quickly ushers them all inside. She is behind all of them, and although the children manage to get in, the teacher gets massacred. The children watch in horror as a werewolf gores his arm straight through their teacher's torso, but thankfully, this gives them enough time to lock the doors behind them. Adolf's speech continues, and now talks about freedom, how they will never be free in this world, how they are always hunted, destroyed, and experimented upon, and it's high time now that the ferals took matters into their own hands. We then see Dale outside Salt Lake City as Adolf reveals his plan in the town hall. He has prepared drinks for each and every one of them. A few random glasses have been spiked with the wolf blood, and those chosen at random will serve as their protectors for now. We learn that the ferals call complete werewolves hornblowers, and they are completely at the mercy of the fathers. Adolf, Sig, and Ciri take a glass as well, and with one gesture to the crowd, everyone downs their drinks in a single go. Sig doesn't change, and this is when Adolf reveals his plan. Sig is the only man Adolf trusts after Nick, and now that Nick's gone, he is going to need Sig by his side for what's about to come. We then see that the random spiking of the drinks was a complete lie. All the drinks were spiked, and everyone except Sig, Adolf, and Ciri are turning into werewolves. That is when we switch to the preschool outside Salt Lake City. A werewolf has just launched himself through the window and is about to attack the children when suddenly Dale shows up and launches himself at the wolf. He grabs it by the throat, pushes it on the ground, and then with a huge growl he rips off his jaw. The wolf has been killed and the children see him as their savior. This is when Gordon calls Dale to inform him that a battalion should be reaching the city any moment now. Dale can see the helicopters and urges Gordon to make sure the soldiers know how ruthless they must be. The wolves have already reached the city and the havoc they are wreaking is juxtaposed with the call between Dale and Gordon. Dale tells Gordon about Vigo and says that if they want to try and handle this situation, Dale is going to have to get in touch with Vigo, but he ensures that Gordon knows that the price won't be cheap. The ferals are tired of living in the shadows. If they want peace, they will have to accept them and find common ground. This call is suddenly interrupted by Gordon's secretary, who says that the president is calling him. Meanwhile, the entire Salt Lake City has become a battleground, and though the Apache helicopters are dealing massive damage, they are still flying through high rises, and this means that it doesn't take long for the wolves to scale the towers and jump on the helicopters. The ground team seems to be holding their own for now, and they slowly and steadily mow down every wolf that stands in their way. The tide seems to be turning, but that is when Dale spots another horde of at least 1,000 more wolves rushing towards the city. Back in Green Gorge, Gordon is preparing himself for the call with the president. He hands over his cell phone to his secretary and tells her to talk to Dale and note down anything important he has to say. The secretary takes the phone outside while Gordon takes the call inside. She puts the phone to her ear and hears Dale screaming about the recent horde of werewolves that is joining the battle. Dale continues to scream, but the secretary simply cuts the call and throws it into the trash bin outside. She is another werewolf working for the fathers, and the soldiers outside the town hall have now begun to panic. They use the loudspeaker to warn the people inside that they're coming in, and that is when a few soldiers with a battering ram approach the front door. Unfortunately, the door opens with a loud bang, and most of them are crushed under the weight of all the wolves rushing outside. The battle in Green Gorge begins while the battle in Salt Lake City rages on. The soldiers here are clearly outnumbered, and they have begun to fall at a rapid pace. The major in charge begs for reinforcements, and all of this is being watched by Dale and the children from a hill outside the city. The little girl knows that this is a losing fight, and Dale has no words of comfort for her. All he can do is hold her close to him as they watch the city burn before them.